direction. Doesn't matter, right? It's just a diagram. But the reason for the shape of it is everything that can influence your universe has to be within the speed of light. And the speed of light right now means that only this part of the universe is going to affect you. But if you go either into the past or into the future, more and more will be within the speed of light, for that time period. So it gives you a cone shape. And there's an interesting. Let me go and just ask for the images and see if I can get my favorite one. Because there's one that shows all of us as individuals going through. Here we go, this one. So if you see here, what we've got is the space cone in a large size, but everybody else has got their own little one. So I think that's fun because each of us is the center of our own universe. I can't imagine you ever someday discovering that you're not the center. Because every experience you have, of course, you're the center of your experiences, which is the whole point of that, right? But you're familiar, of course, with the geocentric model, right? Which says that the Earth is the center, right? And then there's the heliocentric model, which is what? The sun is the center. So let me ask you, this will be my quiz question for today. Is the Earth the center of the universe? Or the solar system? Or is the sun the center? Do you believe in either the geocentric or the heliocentric point of view? Yes.
I remember in this astronomy class I took a few years ago, there was a thing called the barysphere, where it's like
You
the
mentioned
sun
that in your email. Yeah.
is like the barysphere is inside the sun, so it appears like it's sun center, but the sun actually rotates around the barysphere itself.
Neat thing I just read about not too long ago, the moon. We always think the moon goes around the Earth, but actually it's doing the same thing. It's going around that same point as is the Earth. So both the Earth and the moon are actually going around the sun in that model, right? So that you end up with, the calculations. This gives us what's called the third body problem, where you have the Earth, the sun, and the moon. So you got three bodies. So calculating where they're all going to be as they're all influencing one another is really quite an amazing mathematical problem. If you've watched, as I did, the latest shot that went and intercepted the moon and went like this around the moon a couple times and then came back. SpaceX, I think, did that, right? Absolutely fascinating, and just knowing how complicated it was for them to be able to do that is awfully amazing. But there's also what is it called? The helical? Actually, well, actually, I don't even have to. So, have you seen this one? This has lousy music. Well, I don't need the music, actually. So if you think of it this way, because of course the sun is actually traveling, right? Everyone knows that? Yes? It's traveling in a circle around the galaxy. It takes, 250 million years to make one circuit. But so everything is following it. So if you look at that, notice that nothing is actually going in a circle around the sun, but we're all sort of traveling along with the sun. See what I mean? That's way too fast, of course. if you slowed it down and spread things out, you could see everything looks almost like a the DNA, molecule or whatever we call it, the double helix. Actually, all the other particles and everything. So, what am I trying to suggest? This model is not superseding the other models, but this model is also accurate. Depending on what you're trying to achieve, you want this model they go off a deep end on this one. They might be right, but I think some of it's just silly, because they make comparisons to everything else in biology and so on, argue that the way the solar system moves through space is just like a biological thing. But the basic idea, though, is accurate. Everything's moving through space. So notice that that's actually in conflict with both the heliocentric and the geocentric theory. And who proved that the geocentric theory was false? Galileo? Yes? And Galileo gives us so he gives us, these are drawings that Galileo made from his observations of Venus. And what he demonstrated with these was that Venus is not going around the Earth, but is going around the Sun. And as a result, that falsified the idea that everything goes around the Earth. But Tycho Brahe came to the rescue. With a model oh shoot, it's not going to give me the, okay, there it is. So what Tycho Brahe, who didn't want to get burned at the stake, Europe, end of the Middle Ages really, he's still concerned about what the church thinks, even though the Pope Urban was a friend of Galileo, and they had lots of meetings together and so on, even after he became Pope. Basically, the Pope said, "No, don't spread this. Don't tell everybody this. It's just going to upset everybody." But Galileo was so convinced that he was right, so he published it even accidentally. In fact, the preface to his book was his preface saying that he wasn't responsible for printing this. It was his friends that did it. So that's just hilarious, I think. But in any case, Tycho Brahe figured out a way. You just make everything go around the sun, except for the moon, and then the sun goes around the Earth, and everything goes with it. And you end up with a model that works, that still works today. Of course, you're ignoring things like mass in order for this to work, and so on. But as far as I understand it, if you're going to use telescopes to try to follow the various stars and their movements and look for planets, especially at other suns, the best model to use is actually this model, because you want to have the fixed place where you're observing to not be in motion, that you have to calculate. So it's easier to try to figure out where other planets are. Another model that's fun is Brian Greene. I'd spell his name. And in the Fabric this book here, I think it's chapter 8, he argues that all time exists at once. So in a sense, it's like a frozen river. And so what he basically suggests is that what gives us the illusion of time is our personal conscious experience. So all of time exists at once. Basically, this is it goes with Einstein's cone theory, is the whole cone exists at once for Einstein, right? And so all of time exists at once, and in a sense, it's like all of time is a DVD. And Brian Greene argues, it's a DVD of Gone with the Wind, he said. So when you look at the DVD, all the bits are on there permanently, right? But you put that into, say, like your consciousness and play it, and it gives the illusion of movement with your DVD player, right? So it's the consciousness that gives the universe the appearance of moving, and that also helps explain why time seems to move faster or slower, depending on our mood or our interest or whatever. Because it's actually your experience or you're having. Whether or not others are in your shared experience is actually a darn good question. I might be the only one in my conscious experience. Who knows? How do you know? The point I'm trying to make is that if you've seen the notes, we have what is referred to as the model dependent reality or realism. This, at least I know, is in the book by Stephen Hawking and Mladenov. I don't remember, Leonard Mladenov, in their book, The Grand Design. And basically what they're arguing is that due to the nature of our human thinking, we have to have a language, and within that language, that symbolic system, we have these concepts, and we create these models in our minds that help us explain and predict, give us knowledge so that we can figure out whether we should live in Southern California, with modern global warming and so on, knowledge, where can we get that? Basically through a particular model, and depending on how successful the model is, that's the model we ought to use if we want to be successful in whatever it is we're doing. But we end up with lots of different models. Some of them even, of course, as I was just going through, look like they're contradicting one another. How do you believe that, yes, they're all true? If they're successful models and you could use them for different things, it's true for us. Practically speaking, it makes sense to think, well, the sun comes up and it goes down. It rises in the east, sets in the west, goes around the earth. And as far as gravity is concerned, if I'm, walking around, I like to think of gravity as existing. Today, gravity isn't thought of as a real thing at all. Instead, what we have is everything in curved space, following its trajectory, right? So you're traveling in a trajectory that's, in conflict with the Earth by just exactly 1 g of force. So the Earth is accelerating you, which gives you the feeling of weight. And the reason we're having that experience is because we're kind of crashing into the Earth at that constant rate of 1 g. And so, in the curved space that we're traveling in, we're being accelerated by the Earth. I remember the time we had the earthquake in 2018. I was driving down the Glen, and all of a sudden my Audi started shaking like crazy. And I thought, this is unusual behavior for an Audi. And then I looked and I saw a person driving next to me was experiencing the same thing, and I thought, aha, earthquake. And then I drove under the new Muldoon overpass, thinking, well, you know what you say when you realize you're doing something dumb. Middle of an earthquake, and I'm driving under a big concrete, thing. Fortunately, you notice it didn't fall while I was driving under it, and I made it all the way to the campus and discovered that this building was trashed. I don't know if you were here then, but all the lights, had all the these ceilings don't really hold up during an earthquake. And a lot of the glass in the foyer all broke and everything. Campus closed. Don't park under I parked, outside on that day. What was the point of that? Oh, yeah, well, it's hard thinking that you're driving and you're trying to stay on a planet that's moving at 5,000 miles or 25,000